Hi, I'm Rachel Lancis, and today I'm going to talk to you about my psychology of science, my application for Daniel Abbott for class 4 EDPS 457. Okay. I'm going to first talk to you about psychology as a science. The terms that I used are learning curve, fixation, extinction, and shaping. A learning curve is used to chart the learning levels. Fixation is used to fix or to be fixed or in the process of being fixed. Extinction is forgetting the information, and shaping is used to improve or to control the outcomes. Psychology as a science. The different parts of a learning curve represent the different stages of the learning. Fixation, staying at 0, learning greater than 0, forgetting less than 0, and extinction is staying at 0. When assessing your students, you can use the learning curve to assess if your students are fixated, learning, or at extinction. After learning where they are at, shaping can be introduced to improve their outcomes or control them. I guess the question I have then for you is, when your student is at extinction, can you start over and reteach the information? Can reteach the material so they can receive the information? I answered yes, because extinction is forgetting of the information. So for them to receive the information, you can reteach them in a different way so they can receive the information. Next, I'm going to talk to you about behaviorism. The 4 terms that I used in behaviorism are behaviorism, VRR, rewards, and punishment. Behaviorism is a study of human behavior, and the term VRR stands for variable rewards ratio, which means rewarding the behavior sporadically. The term reward stands for a stimulus is presented to the learner when a response goes up. The term punishment is a stimulus presented to the learner when the response goes down. Now, an aspect of behaviorism is the behavior itself. When assessing someone's behavior, you either give them a reward or a punishment. Using VR, you want to make sure you're not rewarding them all the time. Make sure it's a surprise. Now, you can use this in teaching a class when you want to study each one of your students' behavior. You want to make sure that you're either rewarding or punishing their behavior and using VRR in the process. I guess then the question that I have for you is, when rewarding or punishing your behavior, what is an example of rewarding bad behavior and punishing good behavior? Giving positive attention to bad behavior. Next, I'm going to talk to you about modeling. The four terms that I chose for modeling are persuasion, behavioral modeling, cognitive modeling, and mastery. First, persuasion is being told you can do something. Behavior modeling, we are physically showing that we can do something. Cognitive modeling, thinking out loud, and mastering is accomplishing a skill. Now, there are psychological changes. There are 4 psychological changes: mastery, persuasion, modeling, and physiological. When someone is trying to show that they are modeling, they can either do it through cognitive modeling or behavioral modeling. In a classroom, your students are getting to exhibit many different types of modeling. They will either model it cognitively or behaviorally. As a teacher, you need to make sure that they are mastering their skills and persuade them to try and complete the task at hand. I guess then the question that I have for you is, at a point in time, can your students be modeling both cognitively and behaviorally? Yes. When a student knows an answer, he could say it out loud, but realizes he needs to raise his hand like the rest of the students. Next, I'm going to talk to you about self-efficacy. The first term that I use is self-efficacy. Then I use self-concept, self-esteem, and then finally motivation. First, self-efficacy is the belief that an individual can perform a task really and right now. Self-concept, an individual's perception of self, and then self-esteem, an individual's perception of their self-worth, and finally, motivation, the guiding tool used to complete a task makes self-efficacy easier. Now, when assessing your self-efficacy, you have to try and judge if right then and now you can perform a task. If you have right self-efficacy, your self-motivation will be higher. If you have lower self-efficacy, you will have a lower motivation. This all leads to one self-concept. Self-concept and self-esteem are reflections of self-efficacy. So when teaching a classroom, you want to pay attention to your students' self-efficacy. Their self-esteem, self-concept, and motivation will play a role in how they will or can complete a task.
I am pissed.
The question then that I have for you is, can an individual have the same self-concept and self-esteem? No, because they represent different aspects of a person. Next, I'm going to talk to you about memory. The terms I use are declarative memory, procedural memory, working memory, and long-term memory. First, declarative memory is memory that is based on schemas, also called book learning. Next, procedural memory, doing something right that moment, like riding a bike. Working memory, new information that can only be stored for 10 seconds unless you do something with it. Long-term memory is memory that can lead for a few days or for a few years. There are two different kinds of memory, procedural and declarative. When you receive new information, it is stored in your working memory until you do something with it. Then, it is stored in your long-term memory. If you don't work with the memory right away, you will lose it. When teaching in your classroom, you want to pay extra attention to the type of memory you're teaching them. Make sure when you teach them information you receive it and make sure it's getting stored in your students without losing it. Then the question that I have for you is, does working with new information ensure that it will become long-term memory? No. You have to keep encoding and coming back to the information to be able to store it in your long-term memory.
I'm still mad, so does
Finally, I will talk to you about individual differences. Individual differences are the differences in a personality, skills, and cognitive abilities. Physical disabilities are disabilities of the outer parts, example of limbs. Crystallized intelligence are accumulated intelligence from past experiences, schools, and culture. And finally, emotional/behavioral disabilities are inabilities to handle your emotions or behaviors. One of the many individual differences that separate us are our disabilities. There are 4 different kinds of disabilities: physical, emotional/behavioral, intellectual, and learning. Many people can base their experience of individual differences on past experiences with differences. This represents crystallized intelligence. Every student is different, and some may find it harder to complete tasks than others in a classroom. It is the responsibility of the teacher to make sure that the accommodations to certain students and their disabilities. Then finally the question I have for you is, what is the difference between intellectual disability and a learning disability? With a learning disability, they are fine intellectually.